People drive through Lincolnshire on their way somewhere else. It is flat. It is quiet. It is famous for sausages and not much else, or so most of the country assumes. But that assumption is one of the great mistakes in British geography. Because hidden in this flat, quiet, overlooked county is the building that was the tallest in the entire world for over 2 centuries, the home where Isaac Newton invented modern physics, the birthplace of the first female prime minister, an original copy of the most important document in the history of democracy, the airfields that launched the most famous bombing raid of the Second World War, and the place where the jet engine, the tank, and the modern barcode were born. These are 35 wild facts about Lincolnshire you didn't know. And number 1 changed the course of human history from the garden of a small stone farmhouse. This is Dust and Stories. Subscribe, because the most overlooked places often hide the biggest stories. Fact 35. Lincoln Cathedral was the tallest building in the world for 238 years. Completed with its great central spire in the early 14th century, Lincoln Cathedral is believed to have surpassed the Great Pyramid of Giza as the tallest structure on Earth, a record the pyramid had held for nearly 4,000 years. Lincoln held the title until the spire collapsed in a storm in 1548. For well over 2 centuries, the tallest thing humanity had ever built stood in Lincolnshire. Fact 34. Lincolnshire is England's 2nd largest county. Only Yorkshire is bigger. Lincolnshire is vast, flat, and sparsely populated with 50 miles of coastline, the rolling chalk hills of the Wolds, the Great Flat Fens, and the Humber Estuary along its northern edge. Fact 33. Isaac Newton was a Lincolnshire farm boy. The most influential scientist who ever lived was born at Woolsthorpe Manor near Grantham in 1642 and educated at the King's School in Grantham. The manor is now owned by the National Trust, and the apple tree in the garden, the one that supposedly inspired his theory of gravity, is still alive and still producing apples nearly 400 years later. Fact 32. Margaret Thatcher was born above a grocer's shop in Grantham. The first female prime minister of the United Kingdom grew up in a flat above her father's corner shop in the Lincolnshire town of Grantham. Today, statues of both Isaac Newton and Margaret Thatcher, 2 of Grantham's most famous children, stand in the town. Fact 31. Lincoln Castle holds an original 1215 Magna Carta. There are only 4 surviving original copies of the Magna Carta from 1215, the document that first established that even the king was subject to the law, and the foundation of constitutional government across the English-speaking world. One of those 4 originals is kept at Lincoln Castle. It is one of the most important documents in human history, and Lincolnshire has had its own copy for over 800 years. Fact 30. The Pilgrim Fathers came from Lincolnshire. Many of the pilgrims who sailed to America and founded the Plymouth colony came from the area around Boston in Lincolnshire. They first attempted to flee England from the Lincolnshire coast. The American city of Boston, Massachusetts, is named after Boston in Lincolnshire, and the Lincolnshire original is where the story of Puritan America really began. Fact 29. Lincolnshire had more airfields than any county in England. During the Second World War, Lincolnshire's flat terrain made it the ideal location for Royal Air Force bomber bases. It became known as Bomber County, packed with more airfields than anywhere else in the nation. Pilots returning from raids over Germany in the dark used the cathedral's great bulk, rising out of the flat land, as a landmark to guide them home. Fact 28. The Dam Busters flew from Lincolnshire. The legendary 617 Squadron, the Dam Busters, were based at RAF Scampton in Lincolnshire. In 1943, they launched the most famous bombing raid of the war, using the bouncing bomb to breach the dams of the German Ruhr Valley. The bouncing bomb itself was invented by Barnes Wallis, who had strong Lincolnshire connections. Fact 27. The Red Arrows are based in Lincolnshire. The RAF aerobatic team, the world-famous Red Arrows, call Lincolnshire home. So does the Battle of Britain Memorial Flight, which keeps historic aircraft like the Spitfire, the Hurricane, and the Lancaster bomber flying. People in Lincolnshire regularly look up to see legends of aviation history practicing overhead. Fact 26. The world's first tank was built in Lincoln. During the First World War, the engineering firm William Foster and Company of Lincoln built the first tank ever made, a machine designed to break the deadlock of trench warfare. The prototype was nicknamed Little Willie. The tank, one of the most significant weapons in the history of warfare, was born in Lincolnshire. Fact 25. The jet engine was developed by a man with deep Lincolnshire ties. Sir Frank Whittle, the inventor of the turbojet engine, carried out crucial early work connected to the county. The jet engine transformed aviation, and it shrank the world. Lincolnshire's contribution to flight runs from the first tanks to the first jets to the Red Arrows. Fact 24. Lincoln has the only Roman arch in Britain you can still drive under. The Newport Arch in Lincoln was built by the Romans nearly 2,000 years ago, and traffic still passes beneath it today. Lincoln was a major Roman city called Lindum Colonia, and two great Roman roads, Ermine Street and the Fossway, met there. Fact 23. Lincolnshire grows a huge share of Britain's food. The county is the United Kingdom's largest producer of potatoes and a leading grower of wheat, cereals, and poultry. It's also the second largest producer of sugar beet. The flat, fertile land that makes Lincolnshire look unremarkable is some of the most productive farmland in the country. Fact 22. Over a third of Britain's flower bulbs come from Lincolnshire. The area around Spalding in the Fens was once the heart of the British flower industry, and over 38% of the country's bulbs are grown in Lincolnshire. The Spalding Flower Parade was a famous annual event for decades, with floats decorated in millions of tulip heads. If you're enjoying this, hit subscribe right now. The next 20 are even better. Fact 21st. Lincoln Cathedral stood in for Westminster Abbey in the Da Vinci Code. When the filmmakers behind the Da Vinci Code were refused permission to film in Westminster Abbey, they used Lincoln Cathedral instead. They built murals and polystyrene replicas, including a fake tomb of Isaac Newton, to make the Lincoln Chapter House resemble the Abbey. Fact 20. Lincoln Cathedral has a library designed by Sir Christopher Wren. The architect of St. Paul's Cathedral designed the Wren Library at Lincoln, completed in the late 17th century. It still holds priceless medieval manuscripts. Fact 19. There is a stone imp hiding in Lincoln Cathedral. According to a 14th century legend, the devil sent two imps to cause chaos in the cathedral. They smashed furniture and tripped the bishop. An angel emerged from a book of hymns and turned one imp to stone. The Lincoln imp, frozen forever in the stonework high above the angel choir, became the symbol of the city, and you can still find him if you look up. Fact 18. The first female police officer in Britain with full powers of arrest served in Lincolnshire. Edith Smith was sworn in at Grantham in 1915 and is recognized as the woman with the power of arrest. A pioneering figure in the history of policing, she began her career in this quiet Lincolnshire town. Fact 17. Lincoln made more aircraft than anywhere else in Britain during the First World War. The city manufactured over 3,500 aircraft in that conflict, more than any other place in the country. Lincoln's aviation legacy stretches back over a century, long before it became Bomber County. Fact 16. Lincoln Castle was built by William the Conqueror. Constructed in 1068, just 2 years after the Norman conquest, Lincoln Castle is one of only 2 castles in England built with 2 mottes or mounds. It later housed a Victorian prison, which featured in the television series Downton Abbey. Fact 15. The Lincolnshire fens were drained by Dutch engineers. The vast wetlands of the Lincolnshire fens were drained in the 17th century, largely under the direction of the Dutch engineer Cornelius Vermuyden. That work transformed a watery marsh into some of the richest farmland in England. Much of the fens lie at or below sea level, kept dry only by an endless network of drains and pumps. Fact 14. Lincolnshire has a giant of a man in its history. William Bradley, born in Market Weighton on the Yorkshire and Lincolnshire border, and other notable tall figures aside, Lincolnshire folklore is full of giants. But the county's most enduring folk figure is the Lincolnshire poacher, celebrated in the county's unofficial anthem, a song about a man caught poaching game on a squire's land, sung across the county with pride. Fact 13. Thomas Paine lived and worked in Lincolnshire. The author of Common Sense and Rights of Man, the writer whose words helped ignite the American Revolution, worked as an excise officer in the Lincolnshire town of Alford before emigrating to America. The man who helped inspire a revolution learned his trade in the quiet Lincolnshire countryside. Fact 12. A Bronze Age boat was found buried in Lincolnshire. In the late 19th century, workers digging gas lines uncovered an astonishing prehistoric boat preserved in the wet Lincolnshire ground. The fens and waterlogged soils of the county have preserved remarkable archaeological treasures from thousands of years ago, including ancient log boats used to travel the wetlands. Fact 11. Lincolnshire sausages are protected by tradition. The Lincolnshire sausage, coarse textured and flavored heavily with sage, is one of the county's most famous products. Local producers have campaigned for years to have the name legally protected so that only sausages made in Lincolnshire to the traditional recipe can use the name. Fact 10. Lincoln's High Street is one of the longest continually used streets in Europe. Parts of Lincoln's main thoroughfare have been in use since Roman times, nearly 2,000 years ago. The street climbs from the lower town up the steep hill to the cathedral and castle. The upper section is so steep it is simply called Steep Hill. It is regularly voted one of the most picturesque streets in England. Fact 9. Lincolnshire was Viking territory. Like Yorkshire to the north, Lincolnshire was part of the Danelaw, the region of England settled and ruled by the Vikings. Lincoln itself was one of the 5 boroughs of the Danelaw, the 5 fortified Viking towns of the East Midlands. The Norse influence survives in Lincolnshire, place names ending in by and thorpe. Fact 8. The county has its own dialect with Viking roots. The traditional Lincolnshire dialect, like Yorkshire's, preserves words from Old Norse and Old English that have vanished from Standard English. There are still champions of the old dialect in the county, keeping alive a way of speaking that connects modern Lincolnshire to its Viking and Anglo-Saxon past. Fact 7. Lincolnshire has 50 miles of coastline and Britain's fastest-growing land. While neighboring Yorkshire's Holderness coast is being eaten by the sea, parts of the Lincolnshire coast are doing the opposite, accumulating sand and silt. At Gibraltar Point and along the salt marshes near the Wash, new land is forming as sediment builds up, slowly extending the coastline outward. Fact 6. The Wash nearly swallowed a king's treasure. In 1216, King John, the king forced to seal the Magna Carta, lost the crown jewels and much of his treasure while crossing the treacherous tidal estuary of the Wash on the border between Lincolnshire and Norfolk. The baggage train was caught by the incoming tide and swallowed by quicksand and water. The treasure has never been found. It may still be out there, buried somewhere beneath the fens. Fact 5. Lincolnshire produced one of the first Britons to walk in space. Michael Foale, the astronaut, has strong Lincolnshire connections and became the first Briton to perform a spacewalk. From a county best known for flat fields came a man who walked in the void above the earth. Fact 4. Tennyson was born in the Lincolnshire Wolds. Alfred, Lord Tennyson, one of the greatest poets of the Victorian age and poet laureate for over 40 years, was born and raised in the village of Somersby in the Lincolnshire Wolds. The rolling hills and wide skies of the county shaped some of the most famous lines in English poetry. Fact 3. Dick Turpin terrorized Lincolnshire's roads. The famous highwayman used the flat, remote roads of Lincolnshire as his hunting ground for a scandalously successful run of robberies. The county's long, straight, lonely roads, perfect for ambushing travelers, made it a paradise for highwaymen before Turpin finally ended his career at the end of a rope. Fact number 2. Lincoln Cathedral hid Britain's treasures during the war. During the Second World War, priceless British treasures were hidden in a chamber 60 feet beneath Lincoln Cathedral for safekeeping from the bombing. The cathedral that guided the bombers home was also, in secret, a vault protecting the nation's heritage. Fact 1. And finally, gravity itself was discovered in a Lincolnshire garden. In 1665 and 1666, when the plague forced Cambridge University to close, the young Isaac Newton returned home to Woolsthorpe Manor in Lincolnshire. In that quiet farmhouse and its garden, over the course of what he later called his Year of Wonders, Newton developed his theory of gravity, made fundamental breakthroughs in optics and the nature of light, and laid the foundations of calculus. The single most productive period in the history of science happened not at a great university, but in a small stone farmhouse in rural Lincolnshire by a young man sent home because of a plague. The apple tree that is said to have sparked it all still stands in the garden. And the laws Newton worked out there, looking at the apples fall in a Lincolnshire orchard, would govern our understanding of the universe for the next 250 years and still send rockets to the moon today. Lincolnshire is a county the whole country drives past without a second glance. Flat, quiet, agricultural, easy to overlook. And yet it gave the world the laws of gravity, an original Magna Carta, the first tank, the Pilgrim Fathers, the dam busters, the tallest building on earth for 2.5 centuries, and a grocer's daughter who became prime minister. The flattest, quietest county in England has been shaping the world from the shadows the whole time. You just had to look. If this video made you see Lincolnshire differently, subscribe to Dust and Stories. We find the overlooked places and the buried stories, and we show you what the rest of the world drove straight past. Like the video. Drop a comment telling us which fact surprised you the most. And thank you for watching. We will see you in the next one.